before we get into all that, man, I just want to say this. Well, actually, yeah. Let me just say this right quick, man, because this is concerning to me. Seeing this all go down as a graduate of HBCU and as a black man, I just hope that we don't get too caught up in the sauce of getting mad at one of our own for succeeding. Not succeeding, but getting that opportunity. Let's put it that way. Because you mentioned the likes of Eddie Robertson, the great Grambling coach. And there was a great coach that was at Jackson State. I forget his name. With Coach Walter Payton and them. I forget his name. It comes to me in a second. But anyway, all those guys. And the legendary coach at FAMU that coached the likes of Bob Hayes and
Jake Gaither, yeah.
Jake Gaither, yeah. And those guys. The reason why a lot of those legendary coaches stayed at HBCUs because during the heydays in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, it's not that they wouldn't consider, it's that they couldn't. Because there was no PWIs that were hiring coaches from HBCUs to run their program. Period.
No.
Not in them days. And hell, this is an issue of hiring black coaches now.
It is.
In 2022. So you can imagine those days, they couldn't do it. Not to say that they would, but even if they wanted to, they could not. So that's a bad argument there. And number two, it's rare to see a black. Look, I know it's Deion Sanders still, but the point is, even though it's Coach Prime, for a black coach to have options, to be able to choose from said options. Coming from especially coming from the HBCU, that has not happened. That has not happened. And it just hasn't. I mean, but I just wish that people would stop getting all in their feelings about this shit. I mean, look, of course, the man, when he said that God led me to Jackson, how many years ago it was, of course he's going to say that. What the hell is he going to say? He's not going to look ahead and think, well, I'm going to parlay this to my next job. He's not thinking that. He's thinking, let me just do my thing here and show folks that I could win here. Show folks that HBCUs can be winners. Show folks that HBCUs can be a great destination for a coach. Show the rest of the world the value in the HBCU of lecture. Sure, look, I know people are sensitive about that because they talk about other guys who try to do the same thing at least, but they didn't have that. They weren't unicorns. I mean, let's just keep it a buck here. They weren't unicorns. So I just wish that our people would stop getting in the fields. Look, what I would like for him to say, sure, and see how this could play out, sure. Would I love to see him convinced? Like, I know this is a far out scenario, but bear with me for a minute. Would I love for him to be able to go up to Lane Kiffin and challenge his Ole Miss squad to a game in Oxford, Mississippi, and kick their ass? Sure. Would I love to see him one day get enough dogs and horses, if you will, to go to a place like Bama, Auburn, play those guys in the Southeast, and Rex Stroud? Sure. But if the opportunity is there, and you got to do right by your staff too, right? Because a lot of those staff members are going to get bumps in their pay too. So it's a more
for those that go with him, yeah.
The ones that go with him, and I don't know how many are going with them, but still, he has to consider that.
Yeah.
So I mean, to those folks out there, what the hell did you want him to do? I mean, the only thing I would change is for him not to do this right now with the Black National Championship and the Celebration Bowl right around the corner. That's the only beef I have.
Well, my rebuttal to that would be this. You say not to get too emotional. It's difficult not to do so when you invoke emotion from the moment in which you get hired.
Right.
You bring in God and you say how God led you here, and I need you to believe in me, and not just me here, but believe in the kids, believe in Jackson State, believe in HBCUs, believe in the change that we're going to create, believe in all of this stuff. That we're going to go ahead and create a revolution. With all of this coming on the heels of George Floyd, with all of this coming on the heels of the article that Jamel Hill wrote about what would happen with HBCUs if you would have the top-notch groups, with the top-notch athletes come into your HBCU programs, and how we're turning this around. You had that conversation. Then you bring in someone that is looking to invoke change and has the ability to make that type of change. Oh, there's a huge investment in all of that. And yes, there's going to be a whole lot of emotion tied into it. Then when you start to see said thing work, and you're like, uh-oh, this could become a thing. And this could become especially if you're a Jackson State alum, this is something that could probably be epic. And the fact that it's happening here with my program, I cannot believe it. Let's see how this thing pans out. But unfortunately, with HBCU alums that aren't paying attention to the climate of sports as a whole, what they're hoping for, like you said, are the likes of a W.C. Gordon, of a Pete Richardson, who was at Southern for over 10 years, of a Bill Hayes at A&T that was there for over 10 years, and then coached at HBCUs and then stayed within HBCUs for well over 20, 30 years. Like Eddie Robinson Sr. that stayed at Grambling for over 50 years. You were looking for that longevity and that long-term change. That's what you were hoping for. And then when you combine that with the fact that it's us against PWIs, and it's the have-nots, we're going to prove to the haves that we can do it too. All you got to do is give us an opportunity. And then you leave for that same institution that we were supposed to be fighting against. It kind of makes it difficult for you to just easily let that go. Opportunity or no. And I will also say that if it was another head coach, they wouldn't have been as upset. Or if Prime would have came in and probably not would have evoked that type of feeling with that fan base as a whole anyway. If that would have never happened, you know, we probably wouldn't be having this emotion right now. Well, not we, but collectively.
Sure, yeah.
But the thing is, again, God, people say it's so hard to turn down that type of money because HBCU coaches don't get that opportunity. In the last 30 years, you're right. There have only been 2 HBCU head coaches that have gone on to coach FCS programs. I'm sorry, FCS HBCUs that have gone on to coach FBS programs. That's Jay Hobson, that used to be at Alcorn State, that moved on to be the head man at Southern Miss, who is now an assistant at Mississippi State. And of course, Deion Sanders.